Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Canelo Alvarez defeats John Ryder by a lopsided 12-round unanimous decision. I have to say, going into this fight, I really wasn't expecting much. I wasn't expecting John Ryder to be a threat to Canelo Alvarez, and while that turned out to be true, I kind of felt John Ryder was going to go in there and lay down, but to his credit, he never did. He showed good toughness, showed a good chin, he tried to stick in there the best he could, but the injury he sustained early on made his job that much more difficult. But to be fair to him, he showed good heart. And yeah, ultimately, I think he tried the best he could, which is ultimately all you can ask for. As for Canelo Alvarez, this performance was workmanlike, I would say. Workmanlike. Wasn't anything special, kind of average, I would say. To me, Canelo Alvarez was forcing his work a little too much in this fight. Potentially that could have been because, you know, this was a homecoming for Canelo Alvarez. First time in, 10 plus years since he's fought in Mexico, fighting in his home state of Jalisco. To me, he looked pretty keen on getting the knockout and getting rid of John Ryder. And he was kind of forcing it, I would say. Not only that, I think going into this fight, you know, Canelo Alvarez himself didn't really see John Ryder as a worthy adversary. And yeah, I think he was in there with a mindset that 1 or 2 clean shots was going to take him out. But it wasn't the case. Early on in this fight, I felt John Ryder done a couple of things to where it looked like he had the right game plan in mind. Going into this fight, in my prediction video, my preview video, I felt the best chance that John Ryder would have to have success would be to completely smother Canelo. Because John Ryder in the clinch, with a free hand, he's really astute at landing the uppercut. And he was doing that early on against Canelo Alvarez when he was collapsing the pocket really up close to Canelo. He was landing that uppercut, and he did that throughout this fight, his sneaky right uppercut. But ultimately, Canelo's artillery, his power, was quite a few levels above John Ryder. And yeah, Canelo made Ryder pay. You know, every shot was heavy, thudding, and it was causing damage on John Ryder. Primarily, when you look at this fight, both guys were standing in front of each other. It was a small ring. Nobody was really backpedaling for any significant amount of time in this fight. Both guys were kind of standing at mid-range, which kind of suits Canelo, obviously. Canelo was able to pick out his left hook to the body, also the straight right hand to the body. Canelo landed good single body shots throughout this fight. And early on, that's where he was getting most of his success, in my opinion. That's where he was landing his best shots in the first sort of 3 or 4 rounds. He was coming upstairs with headshots, like the straight right hand, for example. But the left hook to the head was nullified by John Ryder. He blocked that shot quite effectively. But nevertheless, you know, he was having flurries in the early rounds, but Canelo was picking out the much better punches. And towards the end of round 2, just like the last 10 seconds of the rounds, Canelo Alvarez caught John Ryder with an uppercut. I think it was the right uppercut, which really busted the nose of John Ryder. Not a nosebleed, it looked like he broke his nose. There was a lot of blood after this point. And you could tell that kind of affected John Ryder for a few rounds. You know, blood was pouring profusely. His face was a claret mask. And it was looking rough in there for John Ryder. Like, at that point in time, I wasn't expecting John Ryder to make it to the late rounds, let alone go the distance. And yeah, Canelo was picking the better punches. But again, primarily they were single shots. I think if Canelo maybe put his shots together a bit better, he may have got a stoppage here, but he was reliant on single punches or 1-2s or, you know, that sort of thing. Round 5, I believe it was, he drops John Ryder with a textbook 1-2, textbook Canelo Alvarez. blinding jab, quick straight right hand behind it, catches John Ryder. It seemed to sap the energy out of John Ryder. He went down on his haunches, looked a bit hurt, but he beats the count. And to his credit, tries to fire back. Caught Canelo with a couple of shots, but he was definitely hurt, but he sees himself out of the rounds. And again, at this point in time, I was fully expecting Canelo to get the stoppage in the next couple of rounds, but John Ryder remained tough. He at times he was defending himself quite well. He was blocking the right hand or taking the sting off Canelo's right hands by parrying it kind of thing and rolling with the shot. The shots were still somewhat getting through, but he was able to take the sting out of Canelo Alvarez's right hand, especially the right hand where Canelo throws, where he kind of loops it around the side. Ryder was able to block that shot quite effectively throughout this fight. Obviously, it was the straight right hand that dropped Ryder, but the looping rights, Ryder had a much better success rate at blocking these shots, or at least taking the sting off them, which kind of made me wonder, why wasn't Canelo throwing that straight right hand more? Against the southpaw, the straight right hand, as they say, is the killer punch, but he wasn't throwing it enough. But regardless, still, throughout these rounds, Canelo was picking the better shots. John Ryder would have moments of success in flurries, primarily on the inside, like hooks to the body, the uppercut through the middle. Ryder should have definitely been jabbing more, in my opinion, to try and give Canelo a different thing to think about, set up his attacks that way, but John Ryder primarily is not a jab-heavy guy, but I would have liked to have seen a jab from John Ryder, a more consistent jab in this fight. Round 9, once again, a good round actually, round 9. John Ryder actually started round 9 quite well, had some good flurries on Canelo, the usual, hooks to the body, uppercut through the middle, tried to land the straight left hand as well to the head. But, towards the end of round 9, Canelo caught John Ryder with, I believe it was an overhand at the top of the skull, which put John Ryder on unsteady legs basically for the rest of the round. Instead of trying to hold or run, John Ryder actually fired back and landed some decent shots on Canelo, to be honest, but he was getting caught himself, getting hurt. Good showing of toughness in round 9 by John Ryder. And the last sort of 3 rounds, Canelo was really coasting, in my opinion, in rounds 10, 11 and 12. So much so that I would even give round 12 to John Ryder. He outworked Canelo in round 12. But yeah, it was a workmanlike performance by Canelo Alvarez. John Ryder showed good toughness, showed a good chin. But ultimately, what would you grade this performance for Canelo? C-, I would say. And going into big fights, he's talking about a Dimitri Bivol fight next at 175 as well. He's insistent he wants it at 175, if we're to believe him. From what I saw, it's another routine win for Dimitri Bivol. I don't see how Canelo can get close to Bivol on a regular enough occurrence to win that fight. He would need to land something big, like a one-hitter quitter or, something like that, cause significant damage to win that fight. And I just don't see Canelo closing the gap against Bivol. I don't see him outworking Bivol. He's certainly not going to he's not going to outbox Bivol or be able to catch up with his foot speed and footwork. So to me, Bivol, I've got no interest in that rematch, to be real with you. I've got no interest whatsoever. I've seen it once. Bivol is a better light heavyweight. I don't want to see it again. I'd rather see Canelo fight David Benavidez. To me, that fight's interesting because, Benavidez is a bigger guy than Canelo Alvarez, and he's got a higher punch output, and he hits relatively hard himself with good speed. So he's got the output and activity on Canelo Alvarez, but Benavidez leaves a lot of openings for Canelo to exploit. So you've got the volume guy in Benavidez who can be aggressive against the counter-puncher, the more economical puncher in Canelo Alvarez. I think that would be a really good fight. I think it's a much better fight than a Dimitri Bivol rematch. It's not like Bivol versus Canelo 1 was close. I know the scorecards say that, but it wasn't a close fight. It was a 9 rounds to 3 type of fight from what I saw. So I've got no real interest in Canelo fighting Bivol at 175. I don't think it goes well for him. As for Canelo's performance, I do now believe we are seeing Canelo slow down. He's had 60 plus fights, been fighting since he was very young. He seems to be picking up more injuries now. I certainly think Canelo now, it's not going to get any better for him, and he's now on the downward slide. Not to say he's shot or anything, but he's just not the fighter he once was, in my opinion. And yeah, we'll see where he goes from here. I want a Benavidez fight. To me, that is the biggest fight he could take. I think it would generate more interest than a Dimitri Bivol fight. And it's more entertaining, in my opinion. I'd rather see Bivol fight Beterbiev, obviously. But it is what it is. Share your thoughts below. What did you make of this fight? What did you make of Canelo's performance? What did you make of John Ryder's performance? And where does Canelo go from here? Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.